The U.S. Department of Transportation has announced an important modification to the hours of service rules that will increase safety and flexibility for America's truckers and other commercial vehicle drivers. During these challenging times, we've heard a lot from truckers and the safety community. Their concerns have been paramount, and we have acted. These new common sense rules give truckers more options when planning their days. They will help drivers reach their destination safely without feeling like they've got to race against the clock to comply with federal mandates. They will also help truckers get the rest they need when they need it. When safety rules make sense, drivers are better able to comply, and that benefits everyone. This action will result in $270 million in regulatory savings for the trucking industry. This will help our economy recover and create more jobs. This is one more example of how much this administration values America's truckers. We stand with you. Working together, we can improve safety and strengthen our country's economy. Thank you for keeping America moving.
And that, my friends, is the United States Secretary of Transportation, Elaine Chao, patting herself on the back in her department. She's notorious at that. See, she sounds like a politician. And, you know, they're really proud of this new hours of service ruling they came up with. And I guess it's a little bit better, but boy, did they miss the mark, though. This report here that I'm going to play next, it's from WTAJ-TV. They're talking about the new hours of service ruling. Let's listen.
This morning, the U.S. Department of Transportation announced modifications to rules for the hours truck drivers are working to help with their safety. David Kaplan tells us more about the modifications and how some are meant to help during the pandemic.
The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration says these modifications give the truck driver better flexibility when they operate their trucks or buses throughout the workday. Jim Mullen, acting administrator for the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, says they've heard from thousands of truck drivers across the country saying a change was needed.
For quite some time, we've been hearing from truck drivers that the current hours of service rules are too rigid. So they're essentially running against the clock all day on delivering their loads and the goods across the country.
Thursday, the U.S. Department of Transportation announced modernized changes to the hours of service rules for truck drivers. Truck drivers who worked 14-hour shifts had to take a 30-minute break at the 8th hour. Now, drivers can choose when to take those breaks.
Instead of sitting in rush hour traffic or driving in those type of adverse conditions, they can get off the road, take a break, their clock stops on their workday, and then they can get back on the road when it's safer, not only for them under the conditions, but they are less fatigued.
Modifications were also made to rules for commercial driver's licenses to avoid a truck driver worker shortage.
Individuals whose CDLs were otherwise expired during the shutdown, we took regulatory relief to make sure that those expiration dates were extended until we got out of this pandemic and DMV started to open up.
The testing can now be monitored remotely instead of inside the trucks to help bring drivers on board during the health crisis. Mullen says this will help to avoid a driver shortage during the pandemic. David Kaplan, WTAJ News.
Okay, so all in all, it's basically really screwed up. You know, I was doing some hotshot stuff back when they started changing this logbook rule from the 10-8 rule. The 10-8 rule. The memories of how well it was. We thought we had it bad. Yes, back then when we were we were working under the 10-8 rule, yes, we wanted the hours of service to change. The rules we were under were antiquated. And what I mean by that is that they were obsolete. They were old. They've been around since, I don't know, dinosaurs. Fred Flintstone was working under the 10-8 rule. Look back at the old drivers, the old pictures of drivers back from the 50s, 60s. Look at their arms. They're as big as tree trunks. That's from no power steering. No air ride seats, all that. And that's what our case was when we were saying, hey, let's change the 10-8 rule. It's obsolete. Our equipment's better. We don't get as tired. We have better accommodations. The 10-8 rule should be laxed up. Well, be careful what you ask for. You just might get it. Here we are, 15 years later. And now, the headline is FMCSA publishes final hours of service rule. The only thing good that has come out of this over the last 15 years for the hours of service is the 34-hour restart. And everything else, leave the 10-8 rule like it was. Just do the 34-hour restart. You've got the perfect logbook rule. Now, you got to do away with the ELDs. The ELDs, holy smoke. Are you nuts? Have you totally lost your mind? A lot of drivers I talked to today, they don't mind them. They like them. And that surprises me for the simple reason, I just don't think I would. I think I'd be anti-ELD. Well, I already am. I just don't think I'd like them. Here's why. I used to run for a company out of South Bend, Indiana. And from South Bend, Indiana to Joplin, Missouri took me 11 hours. So that means, legal driving, logbook driving. When I got to Joplin, Missouri, I would have to shut down for 10 hours before I could drive the other 2.5 hours home. That would just drive me nuts, be that close, and not be able to make it all the way home. That's home time. That's home time. You cherish home time. But anyway. Oh well, it is what it is. And we got to live with it till somebody else comes along. What happened years ago, I remember one of PATT, P-A-T-T, Parents Against Tired Truckers. They had all those acronyms back in the day. Still do, I guess. Used to yell from the highest mountain how bad truck drivers were, blah, 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 blah. Sounded like that. Sounded like the Charlie Brown's, or any adult on Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah. Loud, irritating, making no sense at all. Look, I'm not knocking those organizations. I get it. No, anyone lost due to somebody not being responsible behind the wheel of a big truck. And when I say responsible, what I'm getting at, if you're tired, pull over. But these logbook rules, they penalize you. That's what everybody's up in the air about. That's what they're talking about. They did changes, but they did nothing to address the elephant in the room. And that was the 14 hours, the 14-hour duty time, the 14-hour rule, which is kind of nuts. But anyway. Okay, so what is the final ruling? Well, the final rule features 4 major changes to the existing hours of service regulations. CMV operators will be required to take a 30-minute break after 8 consecutive hours of driving. But that break can use on-duty not driving status instead of being required to be in off-duty status. I don't know many drivers already that, somewhere that don't stop at least for a minute to use the bathroom during an 8-hour period. They're saying a 30-minute break during an 8-hour period. Ah, boy. In trucks with sleeper berths, 2 drivers can split their required 10 hours off duty into 2 periods of either 8-2 split or 7-3 split, with neither period counting against the driver's 14-hour driving window. The agency will extend the window of time during which driving is permitted during adverse weather conditions by 2 hours. Ooh. Short-haul drivers will have a minimum of 14 hours on duty time, and the distance they can operate will expand to 150 air miles. One of the biggest complaints from the truckers, FMCSA, did not address the problem of racing against the 14-hour clock. No way to pause it. They need to get rid of that rule is what they need to do. I mean, it's just, okay, once you start your day, you've got 14 hours. That's it, buddy. You got 14 hours to get all your work in. What? You're hung up in traffic for 3 hours? What? You're hung up at the shipper for 4 or 5 hours? What? You're hung up at the receiver for half the day? Too bad, buckaroo. When that 14-hour clock strikes 14, your day is finished. The agency, FMCSA, estimated the change would save American consumers. Let me try this again. The agency, cracks me up. The agency estimated the changes would save American consumers and the U.S. economy nearly $274 million. I like to see that math. Get Sheldon Cooper over here. Let him look it over. I bet he finds a lot of flaws with that math, huh? These hours of service changes are expected to go into effect in September 2020. We shall see. But anyway, Elaine Chao, she still cracks me up. She does. She sounds like she's such a politician. Anytime I hear that woman speak, I don't have anything against her. I just, every time I hear her speak, it sounds like, my department is the department that all departments wish to be. Oh, well, this FBTV Radio, we get together every Friday morning, 10 a.m., at least we try to. Get together for an hour, talk about stuff like this and other things that might be interesting. You got a question, you got a comment, you want to leave a message, you can do so. You can email us at FBTV@freightbrokertv.com. Those 2 ats screw me up whenever I say that. The email address, FBTV@freightbrokertv.com. Or you can go to the website, freightbrokertv.com. We got forums all over that website. You can type in your comment, question, or message, send to us. And you can also call us at 479-668-0213. Leave your message on our voicemail. That's our studio line. And message, question, comment, whatever. And keep in mind when you call, if you leave a message, that is your consent for us to use your voice on air. Okay? Sum that up real quick. Well, get this. Americans still skeptical about self-driving cars. We're going to be talking about that in a couple of minutes when FBTV Radio Live continues. Good morning.